Welcome to the exciting rebirth of Superstar, featuring choose your membership rate as low as just $3 a month. At Superstar, you get expanded, exclusive videoscopes each and every week, unlimited access to special horoscopes, class passes for Synchronicity University, consultations with me, and so much more. All of this in the Superstar space. I look forward to meeting you there. Hello, fabulous friends, fans, and superstars. Welcome to your horoscope for the year of 2022. I am your astrologer, Nadiya Shah. Thank you for being here. This video focuses on some of the big trends to look out for 2022. If you want to know how all this wonderful stuff speaks to you and your sign, well, just hold on to the end of the video. That is where there will be preview horoscopes for each and every sign. And of course, if you want to see the full length video, well, go over to nadiyashah.com or nadiyashahsuperstars.com to watch the whole thing. Now, let's jump in here because I feel like there's a lot to talk about. One of the key defining transits of 2022 is going to be Jupiter moving through the sign of Pisces. Now, this is such a big deal that I did create a special horoscope all its own, just looking at this larger transit, and I will be sure to link to that below. And that'll help you to understand this with that much more depth. But suffice it to say, as we ended 2021, Jupiter re-entered the sign of Pisces for what is called Chapter 2. And this is the second pass that Jupiter is going to make, zipping through this part of the sky before leaving briefly to enter the energy of Aries, very different from the energy of Pisces. And then just before Halloween, we'll re-enter this part of the sky for wrapping up some loose ends there as we move towards the end of 2022. And so where it comes to Jupiter and Pisces, the key thing to remember here is that Jupiter is at home in Pisces. It's able to bring forward its qualities that are much more mystical and idealistic, but also compassionate as well. And if I had to choose a key point, right, like a key moment of the larger year, really, of 2022, what's the high point? Like, what may end up being the most important moment? Well, it involves Jupiter in Pisces, but it also involves the nodes. Now, the nodes also change signs this year as well, depending on how they are calculated, whether you're looking at the mean node or the true node. Well, there are some calculations that put the nodes as changing signs at the end of 2021, others in January of 2022. But this is also going to be a key characteristic of this year. With the North Node moving into the sign of Taurus and the South Node moving into the sign of Scorpio, we are going to be invited to look at resources and values, what we value on a very deep level, but also to understand power differently as well. I think of the nodes as reflecting and representing the higher soul urge. And so if you think about whether it's an individual chart or if you think about the collective, right, there are things that we're talking about. That's Mercury. Wherever Mercury goes, that's where our attention goes. That's where media attention goes. That's what we start thinking more about as a collective. Wherever it is that the sun goes, we start to understand self and individuality and power differently as well, if only for that month. Our focus and our life force tends to awaken in that area. And Mars as well is sort of what we're motivated towards, and so on. So all the planets have a conscious part of them. I think of the nodes as much more soul driven. They have to do with what karmically its time has come. And so here we have the South Node and the North Node. The North Node to me represents the higher urge. It is how it is and where it is we are reaching for greater love and greater wisdom, individually and collectively as well. The South Node is what on a karmic level we may be leaving behind. We may need to acknowledge that we need to leave it behind as well. And so think about these key energies here Taurus having to do with the economy, right? That's one very straightforward way we understand Taurian energy. Having to do with how we earn, how we spend, the possessions that we take on. Well, these things take on different symbolic significance now. And when the North Node moves into the sign of Taurus, there tends to be a desire for economic empowerment. More people, individually and also as a collective, start looking at what it is that's going to allow them to feel a greater sense of aligning with what it is that they feel is worth doing for money and not aligning with what isn't worth doing for money. I remember back in the first part of 2020, I was saying how we were in the midst of what's called, and what I called at the time, the Great Pause. I didn't coin this phrase, I must have read it somewhere, but it was this idea that so many of us were asked to stop, to pause. And in doing so, had to evaluate our lives differently. We couldn't just distract ourselves anymore. We had to sit with whom it is that we are, what it is we do, and what it is that we feel. And for many people, change, right? The changes that they might have been putting off or maybe not paying as much attention to, especially the changes that the soul desired, well, they started to become pretty undeniable. And I think that has led us to, as we were moving through 2021, a social phenomenon emerged, and that was coined the Great Resignation. And it was this idea that less and less people were willing to do just whatever job was in front of them to do, but rather they were much more interested in aligning their finances with what felt like either purpose or something that they liked to do. For some, something that felt like it was in alignment with their calling. Now that the North Node has moved into the sign of Taurus, I think this phenomenon is going to take on that much more relevance to more and more of us, where there's going to be that much stronger a desire to understand finances for those who are spiritually driven from that perspective, to understand how it is and what it is that one is meant to do, and what prosperity is going to mean for us individually as well. Prosperity can be defined in all kinds of different ways. Yes, for some people, it is about the numbers that show up in your bank account, and that's one way to understand prosperity. Other people understand prosperity having to do with freedom, or having to do with time, having to do with leisure time. So these are all ways in which to understand what prosperity uniquely is going to mean for you. Well, more and more of us are going to find ourselves on that path of wanting to define and align with prosperity of our own choosing and of our own terms. And I think as part of this, possessions, the energy of Taurus has to do with possessions as well. What possessions do we hold on to? What do we take on? What symbolic meaning do we give them? Well, there may be a collective exploration on that front as well. In addition to understanding self-esteem and self-worth, my hope is, because symbolically the energy of Taurus does speak to these matters, well, my hope is that whatever does start to transpire at this time, it helps more people to tap into their inherent worthiness, to live in alignment with some soul calling. To claim that and to own that is a supreme act of self-love that I think more and more people will be taking on. But the South Node, being in the sign of Scorpio, is rather interesting. Whereas the North Node represents the higher spiritual urge, the journey towards greater love and greater wisdom, I think of the South Node as also connected to a spiritual urge as well, but it's more about being aware of what it is that we want to leave behind, where it is that things being the same just isn't going to work for us anymore, where it is we are acknowledging that things have not been good, even where it is that we didn't want to acknowledge it before. So here's the thing, South Node is the lower frequency of that sign, can be understood in that way. Not necessarily, but one way to understand this is that way, because it's about acknowledging what isn't working. The energy of Scorpio is one that is often conceptualized as quite complex for good reason. It's an energy that has to do with power. What does power mean? Who has it? How do you define it individually? How do we collectively understand what power is? But it is also an energy of manipulation, an energy where sometimes things can be unfair. The thing is, with the South Node in the sign of Scorpio, I think where it is that there have been power dynamics that have been abusive, some of that may come to the surface. Now, power dynamics can play out in all kinds of ways, of course, whether that is within families, within companies, within hierarchies. All of these types of spaces are vulnerable to power struggle and possibly as well the abuse of power. So we may have to look at some of that as a collective as well. The other part of this energy, well, it has to do with intimacy. What does it actually cost? I'm reminded of how with the pandemic, and especially in 2020, how part of the isolation that a lot of people felt had to do with being isolated from each other. And that included physically as well. How many people felt that the lack of human contact, on the one hand, yes, there's a type of human contact that can be replaced online and those online connections that were fortified, but to actually be hugged, right? To actually experience closeness with another human being, well, that was something that became that much more elusive to a lot of people. And the need for that started to feel palatable. Now, for many people, they were able to kind of put it off because of the pandemic and social distancing and things like that. I think with the South Node in Scorpio, less people are going to be willing to put that to the side, to put that off. The desire for human connection and human contact is going to be very strong. We are multifaceted people and multifaceted beings. And as much as we have an urge towards freedom, towards individuality, towards independence, which we absolutely do, we are also inherently social. And how we make social connections can vary depending on the different types of people there. But there is going to be a desire for meaningful intimacy, for people with whom we can be truly honest, searingly honest. And I think we may see some collective examples of this where people, perhaps celebrities or people in the public eye, start talking more about their depth of experiences and perhaps the wounds of their past as well. They start talking more about what's really going on underneath the surface. Now, I do also want to mention the energy of Scorpio has to do with psychology and psychoanalysis sometimes, and I'm a big believer in these types of therapies. They can change lives, they can empower people. But it is and can set up a power dynamic as well that can be exploited or abused. And unfortunately, where that is a possibility, some of that may show up for us at this time as well. So that is something to be mindful of, especially as a collective. We are going to be discussing and considering where it is and how it is people can engage in that therapeutic process, the process of transformation, not just mental health, but we're talking about emotional regeneration, going beyond just understanding our own cognitive responses and actually understanding ourselves with greater depth, to examine oneself and one's life most deeply, to find meaning there. I think that journey is going to be something that we as a collective feel the need to start to explore the value of that journey, where that journey might go too far, where it might be overindulgent, but where it is that it's actually very much needed. 2022 has some very big moments aligned with it that I think are quite spectacular and quite meaningful. If I had to choose, I would say it is April 30th and the days leading up to it that just might be one of the most important celestial events to take place. And it's not just because there's a singular event, but it's what is happening in tandem. There's a bunch of different things happening at the same time. And one of these would be very important, but the fact that it's all happening together, I think, is very remarkable and makes this a truly standout time. Now, we are going to feel this energy throughout April. So if I had to pick a month where I said, wow, that's a big month, it's April. If I had to pick a day, it would be April 30th. If I had to pick a week, it would be the days around April 30th. So what do we have taking place at that time? Well, we've essentially got a triple conjunction of Venus, Neptune, and Jupiter. And what's interesting is on the 30th of April is when Venus will exactly meet Jupiter in the sky. But it is Venus that will be at her exaltation degree. So allow me to explain. The ancients believed that there were certain signs that planets really liked to be in and certain signs that they didn't really like to be in. So the signs that a planet really likes to be in, it is able to bring forward its very best qualities in that sign. Now, sometimes it is its home sign. And so, for example, when you're at home, you really like being at home. You can really be yourself, right? Your best self can come forward, or at least your most comfortable self can come forward. The same thing is true for planets. Planets have a sign that is considered their home sign. Sometimes some planets will have two signs that are their home signs. And then there's a sign that is considered exalted, a sign where a planet loves to be, is really able to bring forward its, in the case of Venus, most lush, most spiritual, most beautiful qualities. Now, within that sign, so there are 12 signs. There'll be one sign where a planet is exalted. Venus is exalted in the sign of Pisces. And within that sign, there are 30 degrees. And out of those 30 degrees, there is 1 degree that a planet most likes to be in, is most exalted in that sign. And here we are with Venus at her exaltation degree on the 30th of April, hand in hand with Jupiter. And Jupiter is a magnifying principle. Jupiter amplifies and expands. And so we're going to see heightened energy at this time of beauty and compassion and art. Quite notable examples may start to transpire here that do stand out for the collective in these regards. Now, on the same day, we are going to have a solar eclipse, and this is a powerful eclipse. It is hand in hand with Uranus in the sign of Taurus. And it is Taurus that is connected to Venus because Taurus is one of the home signs of Venus. The sign of Libra is the other home sign of Venus. And so this characteristic of the eclipse conjunct Uranus is actually defining. It's not going to be the only moment that Uranus is going to make itself known. And Uranus is an energy of surprise, of shock. Now, sometimes those surprises we might love, sometimes we might really not. That's the thing with Uranus, is that it's an energy that can feel like it comes out of nowhere, and it can be an energy of extremes. Some people are going to thrive on and love the brand new beginnings that show up at this time. Now, the day before the eclipse, well, Pluto will station retrograde. And so Plutonian energy is magnified, Uranian energy is magnified, and Neptunian energy, the 3 outer planets, are very strong in the sky. And this amplifies the karmicness of this time. And so, to me, this represents big changes for all of us in our own individual journeys in particular, but in very practical ways. The energy of Pisces itself is one of transition and transformation, but it's also supreme compassion and communion. It is truly feeling other people and knowing that we are all one. But it is going to be Pluto in Earth energy. It's going to be Uranus and the eclipse in Earth energy as well. And so you put this together, and it does suggest practical changes whose time has come. Collectively, yes, but in our personal lives as well. Now let's talk about this Uranian energy I mentioned, because it is going to be July 31st that we are going to have the North Node conjunct Uranus, and this may just end up being the most important moment of the year. I mean, think of the very big moment surrounding the eclipse. That's a very big deal. And then we've got another very powerful Uranian activation as Uranus meets the North Node. Now, the North Node, as I mentioned, is very karmic. Uranus leaps us into the future. It is the new and the next. And Uranus can speak to technological changes. It can speak to changes that are in alignment with equal rights or human rights in some way. But I think we're going to see some big advancement take place right around this time. I would give this a window, like a month on either side, because it's such a big energy. But know that this is a beginning moment. This is where the seed can get started and going. Even though there will be events at this time, it's like the events that happen have very far-reaching consequences. And in some way, it is going to be the case that when we look back, we'll realize that this was an important turning point that allowed the world to feel more equal in some way. An advancement again on a level of human rights, but also this could be technological advancements, new inventions that happen at this time that have the ability and the potential to really help us go through massive changes as a collective. Now, the last time Uranus met the North Node was way back in 2007. And so this isn't a meeting that happens very often. When it does, big changes tend to take place. We reach a turning point moment, and that was the case back then. There were several things. One of the things off the top of my head that happened was the way in which social media became a huge way in which society transformed. It was the North Node and Uranus that met in the energy of Pisces back in 2007. And Pisces, of course, is the energy of communion. And there's a sense of being very far-reaching. And so it was almost as if there was this dissolution of borders and the ways in which the internet reflected how interconnected we are, how much it is that borders and barriers don't matter. Well, we saw that really start to take off back in 2007. We saw politically as well. We saw more people of more diverse backgrounds taking on higher and higher positions as well around the world. And so there were breakthroughs of all kinds that did take place. And so it should be interesting to see what we as a collective experience at this time. Some breakthrough, but it may bring with it changes to the economy, some changes in the way that we understand money and resources and how we exchange money as well. There may be some new technology around that front because it is now that Uranus will meet the North Node in the sign of Taurus, having to do with the economy. Now, November 8 will bring another eclipse in the energy of Taurus and also hand in hand with Uranus, but this time, the eclipse is involved in a T-square configuration. Opposite that lunar eclipse will be Venus and Mercury. And sort of anchoring the T-square will be Saturn. And what that suggests is, again, big leaps, big changes. This is now going to be a lunar eclipse, which represents karmic closures. And it emphasizes that sense of closing one chapter. But with Uranus, something new is very much on the horizon and part of this at this time. Now, if you think about 2021, the Uranus-Saturn square was a key characteristic of the year in which we as a collective were striving to understand, and individually as well, whom it is that we were and whom it is now we are becoming or most desire to be. We were striving to understand what greater equality looks like for more people, but also how it is that we honor the best of what has been and transform what hasn't been so great. So that was part of the tension of 2021, and some of that tension may arise at the time of this particular lunar eclipse as well. But that characteristic, Uranus, and eclipses, Uranus and the North Node. Look, this is going to define 2022 for a lot of us out there, which does suggest sweeping and big changes. Well, their time has come. Now, as far as the Scorpion vibe, let's talk about the eclipses that are going to take place in the sign of Scorpio. It is going to be May 16th that there will be an eclipse in the sign of Scorpio. Now, that eclipse is going to be speaking in supreme harmony with Neptune and in harmony with Pluto as well. And I find this interesting because this is going to be a total lunar eclipse. And it does suggest that there are transformations taking place and closures taking place, but that more people are feeling empowered at this time as well. We're willing to be honest and to find healing within that honesty. There may be some collective examples happening at that time of how certain secrets are exposed, power dynamics are exposed, and we are having to look at what previously might have been a mystery. But now we're willing to see it, perhaps very quickly, and it allows meaningful change to occur in some way. Where it is that power dynamics have been abused, some of that may come to light now, but also with it, a real sense of what healing could look like and how to go about pursuing meaningful healing at this time as well. The other eclipse that is going to take place in the energy of Scorpio happens October 24. Now, that eclipse is a little bit different than the other eclipses this year. It is in the sign of Scorpio, but it's hand in hand with Venus. Other than that, it's at the very beginning of the energy of Scorpio, and it's not doing a whole lot else. So what that suggests is the desire for intimacy, for meaningful connection with other people is going to feel very strong at this time. And we may see collective examples of people taking steps to connect with other people in meaningful ways, to experience intimacy with others. But it looks like this energy overall has a certain sense of privacy to it. It's not like it feels like it changes a whole lot of things, but it does feel as if it speaks more to our desires of love, our desires for connection, and our desire to bring love to the spaces that have felt isolated from others. Now may be a time when we're ready to connect and we feel open to it. The next big energy I wanted to talk about takes place from May 10th to October 28th. And this is Jupiter stepping into the sign of Aries. And Jupiter will return to the sign of Aries in the last days of this year as well. And that energy will also define much of 2023 for a lot of us out there. But at least for now and for 2022, well, look, we've got this energy really transitioning, right? We've got Jupiter leaving an energy of Pisces, which is all about that sense of blending and being part of everyone and everything. In Pisces, the self doesn't exist. And wherever Jupiter goes, that area and that energy in particular magnifies for us, becomes a pathway towards optimism and hope. And so, at least for the beginning part of the year, that pathway to optimism and hope involves compassion. It involves acknowledging our interconnection to each other. And then Jupiter steps into the very first sign of the zodiac. And this energy, in contrast to Piscean energy, is all about the self. It's about the individual and our own power and our own will. And it amplifies and brings a certain inspirational quality to examples that have to do with harnessing the individual will, understanding personal power, and what it means to know yourself and go with your instincts and go with your impulses and go for what it is that you want. where it is that we may be looking a little bit forward, right? Beyond just this year. Keep in mind, a little bit later this decade, Neptune will start moving in and out of the sign of Aries as well. And I spoke about this in the decade ahead video. I will link to that below as well, because the energy by the time we get to the end of the decade is going to shift in such powerful and such notable ways. And Neptune moving into Aries is going to be one part of that. But I think that Jupiter in Aries will give us a little bit of a taste, a little bit of a foreshadowing, just like Saturn in Aquarius is giving us a little bit of a foreshadowing into Pluto in Aquarius. Well, Jupiter can help us to do that as well at this time. And so this can also be a sense of emphasis on and inspiration found within athletics, within sports, and it invites us to look more expansively at what immediate power looks like, what physical power looks like as well. Keep in mind that we've got Chiron in the sign of Aries, and a key characteristic of this larger Jupiter in Aries transit is going to be the meeting of Jupiter and Chiron. And that does suggest bringing healing to our understanding of what meaningful power looks like. If you think back in 2020, there was this whole notion around defund the police. And if you think back to 2018, we had Chiron moving into the sign of Aries as well. And I feel that just Chiron moving through Aries right into the middle of this decade, this is going to invite us to reimagine and bring a meaningful, more holistic perspective to what policing can be, and to understand that whatever it is that may be the effect of the actions of a police officer, that effect may hurt people, right? We know this, but it also hurts the police officer. It also hurts the perpetrator. What kind of people are drawn to this type of employment? What kind of people are drawn to become police officers? Where is it that people who are more oriented towards understanding other people differently, well, that may be part of the consideration. I also think that police officers are being asked to be social workers, and they've been asked to take on so many different roles in more and more extreme ways. And there is a particular function that a police officer has that is actually needed. There's a reason we have the energy of Aries. But if we're asking someone who is driven by and motivated towards and wants to be employed under the archetype of Aries, well, we ask these people to also be Pisces. We ask these people to be Aquarius. We ask these people to be Sagittarius, right? We ask these people to take on these other archetypal roles that maybe are not the function of what police and policing actually is. And so how do we account for the fact that policing is something that is evolving, that is now becoming something that is asked to take on these different roles? Is it going to be up to hiring different types of individuals? Is it going to be about offering meaningful mental health services to police officers? Is it going to be about expanding departments so that there's more people who are community workers and social workers as part of these departments? Well, what does that actually look like? I think that Jupiter in Aries is going to help us to understand this differently, and is going to help to bring a spirit of optimism to what it is and how it is that we can evolve these organizations so that they become more of the direction in which we as a collective are evolving, and how it is and what it is that the collective may need from these organizations, like policing organizations. Well, I think that that will be a topic of discussion and consideration as part of this larger energy. Now, Jupiter will not conjunct Chiron until 2023. Of course, I will be here to talk about it every step of the way. But I do think this connection between Chiron in Aries and Jupiter in Aries is something that we will start to experience as soon as Jupiter steps into the sign of Aries, bringing healing and optimism and meaningful hope to the archetypal roles that fall under the sign of Aries. Now, finally, the other big trend I wanted to talk about has to do with the Mars retrograde season that is going to define the later part of this year. Consider this, it was towards the end of 2021 that Venus went retrograde and is retrograde into the early part of 2022. But Mars will go retrograde towards the later part of this year and will be retrograde into 2023. These two energies often stand as contrast, just from a planetary perspective. It is Venus that is conceptualized as an energy that is about allowing, and it is receptive. The energy of Mars is more active and initiating. Now, this Mars retrograde season is going to take place with Mars entirely in the sign of Gemini. And Gemini is an energy of mind and media and communication and education as well. But it's not philosophical, right? It has to do with how and what we are saying and sharing with each other. It has a spontaneous quality to it. But it also has a gossip quality to it as well. Now, a key characteristic of this Mars retrograde season is going to be how Mars is going to hang out in a square configuration with Neptune. And this is all about magnifying miscommunication, misunderstanding, and not necessarily knowing if the information we're getting is accurate or not. There's so much confusion and illusion and delusion at this time. So let me give you some dates when I speak of this time. It is in the first days of September that Mars will go into shadow. It will be October 30th that Mars goes retrograde. And Mars will remain retrograde right into the middle of January. And then Mars will go direct. And then Mars will leave shadow in the middle of March 2023. So we've got a nice long transit here, but it is going to be throughout October and November as Mars starts to slow down to a standstill, that Mars begins to move into orb to a square configuration with Neptune. Then Mars stands still, slowly goes retro, still within orb, reaching a second precise moment in November with Neptune as well. And so it's quite interesting what's happening right around that time. There is uncertainty and, yes, language, communication, what we're expressing. We are going to have to be mindful of that. Now, Mars having to do with our energy and our life force, I do feel like this can speak to, and by this I mean Neptune square Mars for this extended period of time. This can speak to how our own energies may feel tired. They may feel like they're waning. This can sometimes bring into focus the ways in which energy and life force can be used in ways that are not necessarily enlightened and not healthy. Why is it that people become who they become online, right? Why is it that online sometimes people can become very mean? And what are the consequences of that? Well, we may see discussion around that and some notable examples around that as well. I'm thinking of things like how it is that young people in particular find the online environment to be one where bullying that used to just take place in school, which isn't great either. Well, look, there may be an emphasis on some of that, but how that moves into the online sphere, there may be emphasis on some of that. Gemini having to do with education, sort of the primary school education, even into secondary school as well, right through high school is sort of the ground that the energy of Gemini covers. Once we move to higher education like university, college, we're looking at the energy of Sagittarius, which is its own archetype. But in the sign of Gemini, we're looking at how education takes place earlier, and there may be an increased focus on these matters, looking at how it is that children behave, what it is that they're learning, where it is that misinformation is taking place in those specific environments as well. We may see some examples of that taking place as well. There's a saying that the pen is mightier than the sword. And what that means is that words can be powerful in all kinds of ways, whether it is that they can hurt people, whether it is that they can garner affection and love, whether it is that they can secure power. There are all kinds of ways in which words can be powerful and persuasive, but also a force for what is less than good. Words can be just as, if not more, violent than the sword. Now, how is it that we understand this? Where is it that perhaps we as a collective need to understand to take greater reverence for how we communicate to each other, what we say, how we're saying it? This may come into focus. Now, I do want to also share, this is Gemini after all. Modes of communication are covered here. This is Neptune after all. I feel like we will likely feel that we are in an extended, especially wonky Mercury retrograde. Even though it's not Mercury retrograde, Gemini is the home sign of Mercury. And with these Neptunian energies, I feel like internet and phone lines and computers and technologies, all of that could go quite wonky at this time. But in many ways, it's showing us what and where needs to be better. In extreme situations, I think, if people out there who are responsible for, keeping our online world safe, now by safe, I mean in all kinds of ways, of course, from nefarious activities and all of that. Well, look, those people who do that type of work are going to have to be very, very diligent at this time, because some of that possibility is going to be quite strong. So we are going to have to be mindful of that. And if you personally have things on your computer that are personal, that matter to you, well, look, it is going to be an important time to consider putting those different security things into place so that you're well. What I love about this year for us, well, look, there's a lot here. It's a powerful astrological moment and a powerful astrological time. I feel like some of the high points really are Uranus. Now, again, Uranus can go either way, of course, but Uranus meeting the North Node, July 31st. Wow. That is something special. When that takes place, we as a collective take a karmic leap forward. And that leap is always good because the North Node to me represents our move towards greater love and greater wisdom. And as part of the mystery, we are on an accelerated pathway to understanding what our own individual role may be in that collective yearning and that collective evolution. At the same time, though, of course, that eclipse at the end of April is going to be such an important moment of the year. I think a lot of people out there are going to feel like the events around late April or the last days of April and the very beginning of May, well, something's going to happen that stands out to you in your own life. Ultimately, is these moments of awareness and these moments of transformation, these moments of change, these moments that feel touched by a karmic turning point, well, they tend to make the biggest impression. And in one way or another, all of us are leaping forward into a future that ultimately will be much more rewarding, more honoring of our individual uniqueness, but also allowing us to remember that we are inherently social, intimately connected to each other. Well, thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned. Right about now, we are going to have preview horoscopes for each and every sign. And if you haven't already, I would invite you, log on nadiyashah.com, where you can download the full version of these preview horoscopes. And I think the shortest ones were like 15 minutes. The longest ones were at least a half hour long, depending on what was happening in a given sign. And I focused on these larger trends for these given signs. And of course, the Jupiter special horoscopes are going to help you as well understand some big energies here and so much more. I thank you. Thank you for your trust in my interpretation of the sky. I am so grateful for it. And here's to another year. It'll be a great year. Enjoy. Hello, fabulous superstar Aries. Welcome to your horoscope for the year of 2022. I am your astrologer, Nadiya Shah. Thank you for being here. It is a remarkable astrological year without a doubt. Now for you, I'm actually going to start towards the end, but it really is a big chunk of time. If you think about 2021, we ended 2021 with a Venus retrograde going right into 2022. For you, though, a very important energy is going to be the fact that we are going to end 2022 with a Mars retrograde going right into 2023. Now, Mars is your ruling planet. It is your representation in the sky. And wherever Mars goes, it isn't just that your energy starts pouring in that direction, which is the general way in which we understand Mars, but it's that you find yourself by paying attention to that area of life, by pouring yourself, your energy into that new space. Now, it is Mars that is going to go retrograde in October, just in time for Halloween, in a part of the sky for you that has to do... Hello, fabulous superstar Taurus. Welcome to your horoscope for the year of 2022. I am your astrologer, Nadiya Shah. Thank you for being here. It is a remarkable astrological year, without a doubt. Massive moves are happening in the sky now. And for you, by far, the biggest celestial event to take place, well, that has to do with the fact that the nodes are changing signs early in the year, in January, and the North Node is moving into your sign, the South Node into your opposite sign. When I say that everything could change for you, I truly mean everything. The nodes in your sign are a powerfully karmic time, and this energy, yes, it's going to be active this year, but it's going to take you into next year as well. But it is this year where some of the most powerful celestial events that are going to take place related to the nodes, these karmic points, if you will, where big changes can happen, whose time has come. As part of aligning your life with a higher, more loving plan, well, it really is this year that will stand out in many ways. We have got 2 series of eclipses taking place in the spring and in the fall. But it is right in the middle at the height of summer, July 31st, that Uranus will meet the North Node in your sign. And so all of this does suggest that this is a time when Hello, fabulous superstar Gemini. Welcome to your horoscope for the year of 2022. I am your astrologer, Nadiya Shah. Thank you for being here. It is a remarkable astrological year, without a doubt. And for you, it is a very important year. Now, I don't say this lightly. This may very well be a year that stands out in key ways for a very long time to come and for many years to come. That is because of what happens as we get to the last third of this year, and that is Mars retrograde season. September 4th. Mars will enter shadow in your sign, October 30th going retrograde. Now, it won't be until mid-January 2023 that Mars will go direct, leaving shadow in mid-March. All of this happening in your sign, making this a remarkably important time. There are going to be matters of you understanding your power and the limits of your power that are going to come right to the surface. And there are likely going to be deeper depths of understanding as to what it means to in healthy ways assert yourself or your independence or your agency, and where it is perhaps that is hello fabulous superstar Cancer. Welcome to your horoscope for the year of 2022. I am your astrologer Nadiya Shah. Thank you for being here. It is a remarkable astrological year, really. Without a doubt, there are massive moves happening in the sky now, and I think the very big news for you is going to revolve around the nodes of the moon changing signs in January and the series of very powerful eclipses we have set to take place. The North Node is going to move into a part of the sky for you that has to do with friendships and group alliances. I always think of this part of the sky as connected to an understanding that exists in Feng Shui. So Feng Shui is aligning the home, right? So you're a Cancer, you understand matters of home, but aligning your home and the directions of your home with certain fortunate energies. And the same direction that speaks to future wealth also connects to helpful people. And that's how I see the 11th house actually. It does have to do with money that you make as a result of what you achieve. The larger successes, the authority that you cultivate for yourself. Well, how is it that that contributes to your sense of being able to generate more prosperity for yourself? Well, that's found Hello, fabulous superstar Leo. Welcome to your horoscope for the year of 2022. I am your astrologer, Nadiya Shah. Thank you for being here. It is a remarkable astrological year, without a doubt. There are very big moves happening in the sky now. We are going to have some particularly powerful eclipses. The meeting of Uranus with the North Node that I think is going to be a game changer for many people out there. And that certainly includes you as well. You add to this Jupiter moving into fellow fire sign Aries. You add to this a Mars retrograde season to end the year. Well, it does look like there's a lot to look forward to now. So I'm actually wanting to start with the eclipses for you. And that is because the sun is your ruling luminary and intimately involved with eclipses in particular, but all lunar events necessarily involve the sun. The most important eclipse of the year, I would say, is likely going to be taking place around the 30th of April. That is a solar eclipse, and it is happening at the top of your sky. It is hand in hand with Uranus. Now, Uranus is going to play a very big factor this year. Remarkable astrological year, without a doubt. There are massive moves happening in the sky now. Now, it is a year of some truly dramatic and yet karmic changes. Big karmic blessings are set to take place, and for you, it may really feel as if in an instant the world opens up to you. Now, whether this involves you sharing in bigger ways, stepping up to a bigger stage, or whether this is just you having new experiences of adventure, of travel, of learning, of expanding your mind or expanding your horizons, well, all of that is possible now. And some of the moments that are going to truly change you for a very long time to come, well, those moments may truly take you by surprise. And so one of the bigger celestial events to take place this year, it has to do with the nodes changing signs, but it's also what those nodes are going to be doing. Mainly involved in eclipses and powerful eclipses, conjunct Uranus. And we are also going to have the North Node meeting Uranus as well. All of this does suggest a year of... Hello, fabulous superstar Libra. Welcome to your horoscope for the year of 2022. I am your astrologer, Nadiya Shah. Thank you for being here. It is a remarkable astrological year, without a doubt. Massive moves are happening in the sky now. It is going to be early in the year that the nodes are going to change signs, with the North Node moving into a part of the sky for you that is decidedly consequential. This is profound and meaningful change, a personal sense of rebirth. And it also speaks to your understanding of wealth, practical and personal, how you identify it, how you define it, but also how it is that you cultivate it. Now, it isn't just about the fact that the North Node is moving into this part of the sky, but the way in which that North Node is going to light up this year. 2 eclipses, both conjunct Uranus, plus Uranus meeting the North Node in exact conjunction July 31st. Well, look, the nodes are karmic. They are ultimately about what the soul desires to experience, which isn't always something that we consciously are in connection with. And so, on a soul level, you are ready for very big changes. For some, this is going to be a true rebirth of sorts, a sense of beginning again, of renewal, of regeneration, right to the level of your psyche. And it may feel like dramatic changes take. Hello, fabulous superstar Scorpio. Welcome to your horoscope for the year of 2022. I am your astrologer, Nadiya Shah. Thank you for being here. It is a remarkable astrological year, without a doubt, and especially for you. And I don't say this lightly. I have to say, the South Node is moving into your sign, the North Node into your opposite sign. And this is a year when you are going to have 2 eclipses in your sign. Eclipses are dramatic. They are powerful. They can change just about everything. And the reason they do that is because they shift you on a level of identity and priorities. Who you know yourself to be, what matters to you most, what matters to you first gets another look, another light, in some cases quite dramatically so. But the other part of it is that because this is the South Node in your sign, and the South Node has to do with karmic closures. Well, it is parts of yourself that you realize you don't need anymore, or chapters that are ending now that are ultimately going to empower your pathway forward. You are moving very powerfully onward and upward. You are navigating very powerfully towards a new definition of self. And your one-on-one alliances are going to help inform your understanding of who you are. Hello, fabulous superstar Sagittarius. Welcome to your horoscope for the year of 2022. I am your astrologer, Nadiya Shah. Thank you for being here. It is a remarkable astrological year, without a doubt. Very big moves are happening in the sky now. At least when you start the year, you do so with the energy of Mars, feeling the force to create positive change in your life, able to identify where it is that you desire change to take place, and owning your power to move towards it. But many of the themes this year revolve around a few key things that we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the nodes changing signs and what that means for the eclipses that are going to take place. We will talk about Jupiter changing signs, and very important for you, the Mars retrograde season that's going to take up a good chunk of the later part of the year and into next year as well. And so let's start with the nodes, because in January, the nodes will change signs, and the nodes represent a deeper spiritual urge and your unique journey towards understanding some key lessons on your part and becoming more of whom it is that you most desired to be. Hello, fabulous superstar Capricorn. Welcome to your horoscope for the year of 2022. I am your astrologer, Nadiya Shah. Thank you for being here. What a remarkable astrological journey this is. It is a very special astrological time, I'll tell you that. It is going to be this year that we have powerful eclipses as the nodes change signs, and the North Node in particular moving into fellow Earth sign Taurus. Well, luck is something that can feel very unpredictable, but can feel like it strikes and you leap forward. The heart-oriented part of the sky for you is going to be lit up, not only with 2 eclipses, both happening close in the sky with Uranus, but also the meeting of the North Node and Uranus in the height of the summer. Well, I think that that just may be one of the most important transits of the year, especially for you, where you could literally go from rags to riches. And I don't say that lightly. This is a very special time and a karmic time as well. And by karmic, I mean what takes place now, especially the most random, the most surprising, it has the potential to bless your life for many years to come. New people, places, things, and situations can feel like... Hello, fabulous superstar Aquarius. Welcome to your horoscope for the year of 2022. I am your astrologer, Nadiya Shah. Thank you for being here. It is a remarkable astrological year. Without a doubt, there are massive moves happening in the sky now. One of the more important celestial events is going to be the changing of the nodes in January and how that sets the stage for truly powerful eclipses to take place at the foundation of your chart, having to do with your past and home and being more at home right where you are, and also highlighting matters of career and social standing and life purpose. But I do think it is going to be the meeting of the North Node and Uranus happening July 31st that will stand out to you as an incredibly important moment, a moment when you are able to feel like your full and authentic self is able to align with a higher, more loving vision for your life, found at your very foundations. Now you add to this Jupiter changing signs and another layer, which is a Mars retrograde season in fellow air sign Gemini. Well, you can see here, there's so much to talk about as we move forward into another year. So let's start with the changing of the nodes and in particular the eclipses. The first... Hello, fabulous superstar Pisces. Welcome to your horoscope for the year of 2022. I am your astrologer, Nadiya Shah. Thank you for being here. It is a remarkable astrological year. Without a doubt, massive moves are happening in the sky now. One of the more important celestial events starts right out of the gate in January, and that is going to be the changing of the nodes. The North Node will move into the sign of Taurus, and this is a part of the sky for you that has to do with communication and expression. It has to do with understanding your unique voice in the world and using it. And it has to do with certain connections, siblings, cousins, and neighbors. Well, look, this year we've got two powerful eclipses in this part of the sky, and they are going to be hand in hand with Uranus. And we've also got what I would consider the most important celestial event to take place this year, which is the meeting of the North Node and Uranus. So much can change for you as a result of synchronicity, being in the right place at the right time, connecting with the right person, and it just makes all the difference. It is siblings, cousins, and neighbors that are going to be part of facilitating.